like to call to order the Plan and Zone Commission meeting of Tuesday, May 14th. We do not have a public hearing tonight, so we'll move on to our regular meeting. I'd like to caution everybody to please turn off your cell phones. It could interfere with our audio recording. We'll move on to roll call the regular meeting. Mr. Tallman.
Schneider.
Here.
Lammers.
Here.
Med.
Here.
Johnson's excused. Tallman here. Ingram.
Present.
Connell.
Present.
Hepner.
Here.
Bransgard.
Here.
Reinhartz.
Here.
And Manus.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. A report of City Council activity.
Nothing to add outside of what was listed on the agenda.
Thank you. Secretary's report.
Move report.
Second.
All those in favor of the Secretary's report as printed, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It will stay as written. Report account plan, I assume nothing there either, Ryan? Thank you. Zoning activity, no old business, one new business. Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case REZ 19-06, request of Jasvir Sinai, thank you, to rezone 0.56 acres more or less of property located at 4607 North Pine Street from C1 Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District to C2 Corridor Commercial Zoning District. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forward case REZ 19-06 to the City Council with a recommendation for denial, and I so move.
Case number REZ 19-06 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Ryan.
Ryan Rusnak, Community Planning. Here's a zoning map that shows subject property, Zone C1. Davenport 2035 land use is residential general. You can have commercial zoning in the residential land use category under certain circumstances. A little bit of background on why the request is being made. They are seeking a rezoning to facilitate redevelopment of the property with the same use. Currently, the property is developed with a 2,442 square foot convenience store and 3 fueling islands. They would look to increase the size to just under 5,000 square feet and add an additional 3 fueling islands. And then once the existing building, once the new building was built, the existing building would be demolished. So here's a concept plan of the property. Current building is located here. 3 fueling islands are in this location here, and the new building would be built towards the back end of the property, and then once this is demolished, then these would be constructed. Let's see here. Okay, so get down to why they need a request if they're developing the property with the same type of use. When the new zoning ordinance was adopted, the City Council made a policy decision that they did not want the retail sale of alcoholic beverages in the C1 district, which is more neighborhood-based. The theory being is some of the distressed areas of the city, being in the older commercial corridors, based on the size of property, were more conducive to C1 type zoning, and that these are closer to residential properties, and so that decision was made. It did have the effect of making this property non-conforming. Certainly this property could continue the use in perpetuity as long as there wasn't a lapse of a year period where it's been closed. But importantly, a non-conforming use cannot be expanded and it cannot be relocated. So you can't transfer that use to a larger building and just say I'm going to keep the same amount of area to sell alcohol. And so that was the impetus for the request. We do have a series of public input opportunities for the neighbors. We had a neighborhood meeting at the property on the 29th of April. Approximately 20 people attended. Some people expressed concerns. Some people expressed support for the project. We did have 5 people speak in opposition at the April 30th Plan and Zoning Commission public hearing. And we do have 7 letters of objection. I've included a map of the location where people have offered formal objections. There are 2 properties within the notification radius, but we don't get above that 20% rate. The new ordinance, which we like, offers criteria for map amendments. This is in section 1714.040 of the Davenport City Code. And so staff just went through all of this criteria and analyzed how if the property met all or any of these standards. I'd just like to go through them. Consistency with the proposed amendment with the comprehensive plan and adopted land use policies. When you really look at this, this is what a C1 cluster is perfect for, what the zoning is perfect for. This is a smaller scale commercial area surrounded by a residential development or residential properties. It's as opposed to, it doesn't have a defined edge. I know Pine Street and West 46 are collector streets, but it's not an arterial road similar to West Kimberly Road or 53rd or something like that. And so we do look at this area as being a transition area where C1 zoning would be appropriate in this location. And so when you analyze the comprehensive plan land use category of residential general, it does say that existing neighborhoods are anticipated to maintain their existing character with the exception along edges and transition areas where higher intensity may be considered. So again, you've got to analyze this and say at what level, how much higher of an intensity would be appropriate in this location. Again, I mentioned that this is a C1 area. Staff believes that the C1 zoning is appropriate and that a higher zoning category would be too intense for this area for a number of reasons. Very close proximity to residential properties. We did have some residents expressing concern over some of the negative impacts they feel with that close proximity to their property. We do see Pine Street and 46th Street being collector streets. Collector streets on a classification is not as high as a arterial road. And so we took a step back and wanted to determine what was the closest property that's a higher classification than the C1 property. And that was the Hy-Vee on West Kimberly Roads, approximately 1,900 feet south of this property. So we're outside of a 1,900-foot radius before you get a higher classification in zoning. What we did look at, again, when we started analyzing this, is the C2 properties that we see are generally oriented towards major transportation corridors such as East 53rd and West Kimberly. It may not necessarily be on the frontage of the arterial road, but it may be just off of that. So that really starts to play into the appropriateness of C2 zoning in this classification, in this area. Compatibility with zoning nearby property, again, as I mentioned, close proximity to residential property. And so when you start to analyze the intensity of the C2 use with surrounding areas, we think that there's going to be an impact. I included in the packet a use matrix that lists all of the uses that you could have in C2 that you could not have in C1. It was mentioned at the neighborhood meeting, and we would agree with this, is the precedent that would be set if this property were rezoned to C2. There's a vacant parcel to the east that property then would arguably be suitable for the same zoning. Compatibility with the established neighborhood character. Again, this area, in staff's opinion, is a lighter commercial cluster surrounded by a residential neighborhood. So having something zoning that's more intense, that should be oriented towards a major transportation corridor, would not be appropriate in this location. The amendment promotes the public health, safety, and welfare of the city. We did have some residents speak about some of the negative impacts that the use is generating, and I don't want to point it out like it's a bad business, but what we often find is sometimes when you have commercial uses that are that close proximity to residential properties, there's going to be negative impacts like noise, litter, and things like that. And the suitability for the property for the purpose of which it's presently zoned. As I mentioned, the property is currently being used for a convenience store with gasoline sales and selling alcohol. That use could continue, as I mentioned, in perpetuity. It's just the expansion that's limited. And the last one is the extent to which the proposed amendments creates nonconformities. This rezoning would actually alleviate a nonconformity because the sale of alcoholic beverages would be permitted. But it's staff's opinion that the request did not meet A through E of 1714.040. And findings, size, scale of commercial properties in the area, its close proximity to residential properties and adjacent roadway classifications make the C1 zoning compatible and consistent with this area. Proposed map amendment would not achieve consistency with the approval standards A through E of Davenport City Code. Therefore, staff recommends Plan and Zoning Commission forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation for denial.
Thank you, Ryan. Commissioners, any questions at this point? Seeing none. Appreciate your presentation, Ryan.
Thank you.
Knowing that the petitioner and the owner are not available tonight, we have been told by staff that we are to continue with the process tonight. Would anybody in favor of this petition like to step forward? And if so, please limit your conversation to approximately 3 minutes, and hopefully we won't have a lot of duplication.
I did not expect to be speaking here tonight. I thought that the owner would be here.
Would you please identify yourself?
My name is Italo Milani. I'm an architect in Rock Island, Illinois, and licensed in Iowa. And I'm the architect for this project. And you saw one of our drawings on the site plan. And let me say this. About a month and a half to 2 months ago, we had a meeting with the building department when we found out that the City of Davenport had passed a new ordinance on January 9th. Up to that time, we had not an inkling of any knowledge that the zoning code was going to be changed. And I almost had a heart attack at that meeting, quite honestly. And I've been in business for 59 years, and I never saw anything like this. This is a drastic change. May I ask, how many years has this man been in business at this location? 10, 15, 20?
No, it's
Not
6
that
or
long?
7, maybe 8.
8 years? In that time, how many police calls, how many complaints have you had about the property?
I'm not free to answer that.
I have no idea either. I thought maybe someone would know. Does this mean that this man cannot stay in business in that property?
No, he can continue doing what he does in the building that he has.
But he can't expand?
Correct. And just to clarify a point, this rezoning of that property was included in the 44,000 properties in the city of Davenport that was a 2-year process. This didn't just happen overnight.
I understand that,
I just want to clarify.
but we had no knowledge of it. That's all. Changes like this can be very drastic. I hope and pray you're doing the right thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none, would anybody like to speak in opposition? Please step forward.
Council, my name is Judith Lee at 4621 Kelling Street, which is within the Green Acres neighborhood. I have submitted detailed comments both in verbally and in writing, so I will not repeat those. But the question that was just asked is we got police reports back through a year ago January, and there have been 33 responses to that site, including when somebody called the police when we were having our neighborhood meeting out in back of the gas station. So people are sensitive to what's going on at that site. But again, just in response to the gentleman's question, it's been 33, and we have submitted that report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Would anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Glenn Thiede, 4320 North Kelling. I live in a close proximity to the area of the business. Last time I spoke at this meeting that you had on April 30th, and some of you were here and some of you weren't. The only thing I would like to add tonight is the zoning law was changed to help protect us as residential owners. and I would appreciate it that it does not go through, because like we had expressed, it's just gonna open up another can of worms for what is gonna happen next. And a lot of thought went into this. Mr. Ingram, you said 2 years went into this process, if I just heard you correctly. So I know it was really well thought out by those of you in the city or this council that put this together. Speaking for the people that are here and those that aren't, I would appreciate it if you do not allow this to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Seeing none, last call. Commissioners, any questions before we take a vote? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Schneider.
No.
No, wait.
Wait.
Wait a
Sorry.
second. Let's clarify.
Yeah, let's clarify.
A vote of yes is for denial, as staff put in the report. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Again,
Schneider.
Yes.
Lammers.
Yes.
Med.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell.
Yes.
Hepner.
Yes.
Bransgard.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
And Manus.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chairman, and that concludes the report.
thank you, Commissioner Tallman. That would end zoning, as Commissioner Tallman said. We'll move on to subdivision activity. We have no old business, but a couple new business items. Commissioner Hepner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case number F19-07, request of Advance Homes, Inc. for final plat Candlelight Village on 4.01 acres, being a replat of Lot 1 Candlelight Square First Edition located at 5330 Gaines Street, containing one lot zoned multiple family. Staff recommends the City Plan and Zoning Commission accept the listed findings and forward case F19-07 to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 5 listed conditions, and I so move.
Case F19-07 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Scott?
Scott Copes, Community Planning. There's one thing I learned since the report came out, and that the Lot A is actually for a playground. They're going to sell it off to the adjacent apartment area for a playground, and that's what's facilitating this plat. There's no plans for the larger Lot 1 at this time. So that's the new information I have to add at this time. Any other additional questions?
Okay.
Free.
Thank you, Scott. Commissioners, any questions? See none. Roll call. Well, is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak in favor or opposition? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Lammers.
Yes.
Med.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell.
Yes.
Hepner.
Yes.
Bransgard.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
Manus.
Yes.
And Schneider.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The second case tonight, F19-08, request of J+M Civil Design for a final plat for a second lot subdivision located north of East Kimberly Road between Brady Street and Welcome Way. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the listed findings and forward case F19-08 to the City Council with a recommendation for approval subject to the 6 listed conditions, and I so move.
Case number F19-08 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Brandon?
Brandon Melton with Community Planning Team. Just here to answer any questions. No new information from the report.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Last call. Seeing none. Thank you, Brandon. Roll call, please.
Med.
Yes.
Tallman, yes. Connell.
Yes.
Hepner.
Yes.
Bransgard.
Yes.
Reinhardt.
Yes.
Manus.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Lammers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hepner. Future business, we have one item on our agenda. Communications, anything from staff? Any additional business? Nobody left in the audience, so I guess that answers that. That should wrap her up.
Move to adjourn?
All those in favor of adjournment, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for your attendance. Please drive home safely.